All right, sounds great.
All right, so we are joined from Atlanta by a Black history maker here in Black History Month, Stephanie Grant, airline pilot, history maker, part of the first ever all Black female flight crew in American history. I've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School, and we're recording this for our friends at Madison Central High School, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Option Center, and our YouTube channel. So we thank you so much for taking some time for us today.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Oh,
Thank you for having me.
it's a huge thrill. Now, before we get into the things you did and do as a pilot, you are from Sumter, South Carolina, and went to Hampton University. So take us a little bit, from a small area in South Carolina, then to a great HBCU there in Virginia.
Oh, thank you. Yes, from Sumter, South Carolina, probably much like where you are right now, very small. I was raised by a single mother. Combined, I have 5 sisters and 2 brothers. So I come from a very large family. So you can imagine it's never a dull moment. However, I am the first person in my immediate family to graduate from college. Uh, Being that I grew up in Sumter, South Carolina, where Shaw Air Force Base is. I That's where kind of the seed was planted for me. I didn't know what that look was going to look like for me. So it was just something in the back of my brain. I thought that being in the military was how I was going to become a pilot. So when I went to Hampton University, I have a degree in psychology. So you don't have to have a degree in aviation to be a pilot. I always tell a lot of my mentees that I always have something to fall back on. um, and so I thought military was the route. So I joined ROTC at Hampton University, but I didn't get selected. So yeah, I didn't get selected as an aviation pilot because at the time I couldn't pass the physical because of my eyesight. Now you can have uncorrected 20/20 vision or glasses, but at the time back in 1995, you had to have 20/20 perfect natural vision. So I was not selected as an aviation pilot for the Army. And then I went in, did my military time. At the time, it was called the Montgomery GI Bill. So I paid into that. And once I finished my service, my time of service, I got out, went to flight school in Florida, used my GI Bill to help pay 60% of my flight training, which was amazing. It was still super expensive, but still helped a lot. And I got hired at my first regional airline, the only one, Atlantic Southeast Airlines, in January of 2008. And ironically, my historic flight happened in February of 2009.
2009, yeah, and like you said in your story with Robin Roberts, how you had never met a Black female pilot till you were in your 30s.
I'd never met a Black female pilot. I finally went to this organization's convention. It was called the Organization of Black Airline Pilots at the time. Now they rebranded it as the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals. I apologize. I think my internet is a little
No, that's fine.
quirky. So that was the first time I ever met a Black female pilot, and I was in my 30s. I didn't go to flight school till I was in my 30s. So that just goes to show, life doesn't always happen right at 18.
Yeah, and one thing that I've learned when it comes to pilot license, there's several stages. There's the private pilot license, then there's the instrument training, and then there's the commercial license for the multi-engine. So talk a little bit about how that works, because you can have multiple types of licenses, but the commercial jetliners does have the highest level of license.
Correct. All right, so the very first, so some people don't want to be a professional pilot. They just want to get a license and fly around, fly their family to the beach or cross country or something like that. So you can just have a private pilot certificate. That is the first certificate, pretty much, that you need to get. And then there's an instrument rating, which allows you to fly in the clouds. So when it's kind of cloudy like it is here in Atlanta today, you can still take off, and you basically are reading the instruments to keep you upright, wings level. That's a very, very important license because you use it every time I fly. I'm always flying on instruments. The next one is your commercial certificate. Once you get your commercial license, that means you're basically qualified to earn a paycheck for flying. That doesn't mean that you can fly, a jet like at the airlines yet, but you can fly like a Piper or Cessna
Ooh,
for pay once you get your commercial license. Then you can get a multi-engine add-on, which
wow.
means now you can not only fly a single engine airplane, but you can fly with two engines.
Wow.
Uh, and you have your certified flight instructor ratings. So the first one is just to teach basically primary students. Then you have the certified flight instrument instructor rating. So that's an instructor that teaches the instrument students and the basic students. And then you have the multi-engine instructor rating,
Wow.
which you teach the multi-engine. So I have all of them. So I did instruct for a while. And then you have your ATP. So you have to have your ATP basically to fly professionally. And of course, with a certain amount of flight hours is when you can start flying either corporately, cargo, or passenger flying.
Yeah, so like even places like UPS, FedEx, the Postal Service, Amazon all have their own pilots, but they all have those same licenses.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So everybody has their own minimums or prerequisites, job. So they're all in their job description. So what type of licenses and amount of hours that you have, flight time, may vary from different operations.
Yeah. Now, and before we get into more of your history making, for anybody interested in a career in aviation, there's more than just the pilots that takes the plane getting from point A to point B. Obviously, they see the pilots in the cockpit. You see the flight attendants, which are also extremely important. But there's a big need for mechanics. There's big need for gate agents. There's a big need for luggage handlers. So talk about, I'm probably missing some. So talk about all the people that go into aviation, from the people getting to the airport to the people getting off the plane once they land.
Oh, wow. You've asked a mouthful there. There's so many different parts to aviation. Just to get everyone on that plane, close the door and push back, there's probably hundreds, if not 1,000 people involved in that process. From everyone you mentioned to people that are in remote areas. We have to have certain paperwork, dispatchers, our crew schedulers to make sure that we're all have the right schedule, we're all on time. We also just management. There's just so many different opportunities in aviation other than being a pilot that will help just that one airplane get pushed back from the gate for air traffic controllers, ground and in the air. Like there's a lot of people. So even though I think being a pilot is great, I love my career, there's so many more different careers in aviation. If you even just want to get started, I have friends that started as baggage handlers that are now pilots, so just to pay for their ratings. It's very expensive, and I'm sure we'll talk about that
Yeah.
later, how much it costs.
Yeah, and again, and with all the technology changing, you need young people that have an engineering background to work on these airplanes, because an airplane on the ground does not make money, or it does not ship the cargo. So there is a lot of money and a lot of time at stake to get it in the air. There's airline employees that never leave the ground.
That is 100% correct. And we're very thankful for all of them. They're all very much needed. We can't do our jobs without them.
Yeah. Now, one thing, we were just watching the Good Morning America story that Sisters of the Skies was featured on, and it did mention how expensive commercial airline training is. Just and you just said all the licenses that are required, and even though here in Mississippi we actually have a university that has an undergraduate aviation program at Delta State. Which is one of the few in the country. And we also have a community college program that has the aviation program. So there are more options now, but it's still, at the end of the day, not only is it the cost, something that I did not learn until recently is that most pilots are a pilot because of their family. It is a generational family type career. And like you said yourself in some of your interviews, is that you've never seen it. If somebody doesn't see it, they don't think they can be it. And I was talking with the kids before we came on about I haven't flown a whole lot in my life, but I've flown more than most people. I can remember one female pilot ever in my entire life. And I was about 7 years old. She let me go in the cockpit and play with the stuff. But that's the only one I ever remember. And I've flown to Europe, South America, Canada, California, you name it. And it's just something you never saw. So as somebody
Wow.
that had never seen that, the obstacles of becoming that just had to be insurmountable or seemingly insurmountable.
Um, yes and no, because I think if you're determined to reach a goal, as long as you don't quit, you will get there. Not sure what type of turns will happen, what type of obstacles, uh, any adjustments you have to make to your dream to make it happen. But now because of social media, there's so much out there. I was determined, and I always even tell my mentees, motivation is not going to get you there. Discipline is going to get you there. So when people ask, "Oh, I need some motivation," well, then you don't have a dream large enough. You need the discipline to get there. Discipline means that you get up and you do it even if you don't want to, even when it gets hard or easy, or when someone tells you that they don't think that you're cut out for it, or maybe you didn't have a great flight lesson. It's all going to happen. So now that there's a little bit more Black female pilots, there's still less than 200 of us. It is very important, the work that I do, to make sure that they can see someone like myself. Maybe they can see themselves in me and say, hey, she looks like me. She's a brown girl. She's a Black girl. Now I can do it as well. And it's really important that the outreach that I do is reaches as many people as it can. And I've inspired some people that are not females too, like a lot of males that I've mentored. And I'm just happy to be that vessel to help them reach their goal and become a professional pilot, or at least give them that seed is now planted. I'd like to be able to take away the fact that they say, "Oh, I never saw a Black female pilot," but now you have. So
Yeah.
now you know that it's possible.
Yeah, and it's like I was telling them as well, even if they don't want to be a pilot, you're a perfect example of just because it hasn't been done before doesn't mean it can't be done. So something I always
Exactly.
say a lot is you can be the first at something, but that doesn't mean you can also be the best at something. Um,
Absolutely.
and especially for female, and not just Black females, but females in general. Our grandparents, when they were coming up, our grandmothers, they could either be a nurse, a secretary, or a teacher, and that was all females can do. But gender norms in this country have changed. Cultural norms in this country have changed. So there are more and more opportunities now, but it's a matter of, like you said, having the motivation and finding the avenues to do it. And that's what you guys do with Sisters of the Skies. So talk a little bit about Sisters of the Skies, which is your organization that is just getting all kind of national headlines about the things you've done to encourage Black females to get into aviation.
Right. So thank you for allowing me to talk about Sisters of the Skies. We're a pretty new organization, 2017. Two young ladies who happen to be pilots, one commercial, one military, kind of talked one day through DMs. Everybody know what a DM is, because they didn't know each other. And the one in the Coast Guard had never met a Black female pilot before. So she saw the other female on social media. So they struck up a conversation and said, hey, let's maybe just start a group me. And they started a group me. We started adding as many Black female pilots to that group me. And we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just a social thing. Like let's make change. Let's make a change. Let's do something beneficial. So we organized, became a nonprofit. We did our first, I believe, our first scholarship of $2,500 in 2018. We scraped together $2,500 actually, and I'm happy to say we've almost given out $1 million in flight training scholarships total. We gave out $205,000 in February at our last gala just a couple of weeks ago. So my job, what my description of what I do in the organization is I do raise the money. I raise the money for our mission, which is to increase the number of Black and African American pilots that are women. And through scholarship, mentorship, and outreach. So scholarship is a basic pillar, and we have a gala every year. We also have an outreach, which is called Girls Rock Wings. And we have ladies from 10 to 18, either 10 to 18. I think we changed it to 12 to 18. I have to check back on that. But we're going to be doing one in Denver and then another one in Atlanta. But that's a discovery flight. So they'll get to go up in an airplane.
Wow.
And all of our flight instructors are Black women. So
Wow.
there are some people, some girls that's the first time they're ever in a plane. And that experience will be with another Black female pilot. And then we have our mentorship program. So our mentorship program was birthed from the young ladies that didn't get a scholarship the first year we had a gala. And that has grown exponentially. So now they outnumber the members. Our mentees outnumber us, I think maybe 3 to 1. So we have a lot of young ladies in flight training right now. And we're excited because several of them have just started their regional airline job and they started as mentees just a few years ago. So we're making progress.
That's
We
awesome.
have a lot more to go. And if anybody's interested, they can find us on all social media platforms at Sisters of the Skies or our website, Sisters of the Skies, SKIES.org.
Yeah, and you just mentioned a couple major cities. I always tell people, if you want to see the world, see the country, aviation is the way to do it. Even though you do have a set schedule, I have friends in aviation, like my friend I mentioned in California. She's seen the whole country, and it is just such a great perk. Especially we're here in a rural area. People say, "I want to get out of Mississippi." Well, get in a dang airplane and go see it. They're always looking for people.
Yes, absolutely. Especially if you get to fly internationally. I know you said your friend is a flight attendant, so I believe she'll have the opportunity to either fly domestic or international. For us, it's depending on what plane we fly will dictate what cities or countries we get to go to. But usually the flight attendants get to see a lot more of the world than we do, for sure.
Yeah, but it's definitely a great perk to be able to experience so many different cultures and see just so many, even if you're just a domestic pilot, to see different areas of our country that otherwise you wouldn't see. And I think that's such a great perk and so cool to even talk about. But I do have some questions from the students. I'm gonna get to as many of these as I can. This first one's Rodarius Williams. He's a senior, and he asked, "What are some things that you wish you knew that you could have done differently?"
Well, that's a great question. Um, I wish I knew the obstacles that I was gonna run into. Financial was one I knew. I didn't know that it was such a huge learning curve. Because for me, even though I came from a small town, I never changed a tire. I didn't know what a carburetor was in a car, like none of that stuff. So for me, it was a huge learning curve. I wish I just started sooner. But now that I'm here, I wouldn't change anything. But that's kind of life, right? You're going to have some obstacles and you're not going to know everything. And trust me, had I known everything, it might have scared me from even getting started.
Yeah, and I feel you on that because you talk about, the way people perceive females because y'all said in one of y'all's interviews how people get on the plane and think y'all are the cook. People will think y'all are the flight attendants just because you're a female, and it's just such an unfair stereotype. But it's something that Sisters of the Skies and people like yourself really fight to change because y'all are proof that anybody that puts in the work and gets the training can fly a plane.
That's right.
Let's see. This is DeMarnez Griffin. He's also a senior. And he asked, was where you've been worth all the risk and hard work?
Where I've been or where I am.
Or I'm sorry, where from where you've been to where you've gotten to, was it worth all the risk and hard work?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wouldn't change the journey for anything. And everybody's journey is different, right? There's some people who started their journey after me and got to a major line before me.
Wow.
So you can't really judge your timeline on anybody else's timeline. And I believe that my journey was specifically for me, and I don't regret a moment of it. I'm very thankful for my journey, everything that happened leading up, and even the people I met along the way. I wouldn't be here without those particular experiences the way that they happened.
Now, here's a great question. And we talked a little bit about this, but this is Jeremy Clerk. He's also a senior. And he asked, was it hard growing up seeing other girls that chose different career paths?
No, and I just had this conversation with my best friend. We graduated together and we live very close by. And my high school, huge high school. How many people in your high school? Like
150.
oh, so very small. Okay, so so I believe in my graduating class there were like maybe 600 or 700, maybe.
Wow. Yeah,
So
that's like my
very
school that'll see this later.
right, very large. And we were accountable to each other. We everybody defines success differently,
Yeah.
right? Some people define success based on how much money you make. Some people define success because they really love their career or whatever they're doing. Some people define success just being healthy and energetic and that kind of thing. And our group of friends made sure that we were accountable to be successful in whatever that looked like for ourselves. So we were never in competition with one another, and whatever anyone else wanted to do with their life or whatever dreams they had, we supported them. And we continue to, and they've been very successful. So I would say, I love the fact that a lot of my friends are doing exactly what they always wanted to do, even though it's not being a pilot, but hey, it's okay.
Um, this is Brian Mercer. He's also a senior, and he asked, "What skills would you recommend I become good at if I wanted to get into aviation?"
It depends on which uh, aviation field he was wanting to get into. As a pilot, a lot of the younger generation, I was never a gamer, and the airplanes are very modern now, like very modern. Like so I never had flight sim or any of that stuff. And a lot of younger people are very familiar with all of the how the cockpit looks, like button switches already, way before myself ever did. So I would say continue to do that if you want to be a pilot. If you wanted to be like a mechanic, whoever works on cars, whether that's an uncle, dad, mom, whoever, like get really good at just mechanical stuff and start reading. Um, and in general, people think you need to just know a lot about math, science. And I tell them in whatever career you decide, you need to be good at science, social studies, English, like all of them. You need to be good at all your subjects. So, but you don't, like I told you earlier, you don't have to have a degree in aviation to be a pilot. So just whichever field it is, start reading up on it and find a mentor. I think that would be that's also doing it. That would help a lot.
Yeah, and everybody in a commercial airline is going to have some type of customer service skills as well, because you're dealing with a lot of people, a lot of very nervous people, a lot of very in a hurry people. So the customer service aspect of it, on top of what you just said, I think would be vital as well.
Absolutely. I would say if you're not a people person, it will probably be a very difficult job for you because if you've been in an airport lately, there's a lot of people. so, so customer service is of course, and aviation safety is also number one. Yeah.
Here's a good one. This is Jakia Luckett. She's a junior and she's got a couple. She asks, "What is the most difficult thing about your career, and where's your favorite place to fly to?"
Okay, the most difficult thing about my career, because I am a mom and a wife, is being away from them, because you are away. I fly domestically, which means just continental United States, some Mexico, Canada, that kind of thing. Not international, not to London or Tel Aviv or anything like that. But I am gone 3 to 4 days a week, and then home a few days and then back out on the road. So it's not as glamorous as you may think, but that is probably the toughest thing for me is just being away from my husband and my 11-year-old son and almost 8-year-old daughter. And what was the second question?
Where's your favorite place to fly to?
Let's see. Th that's such a hard question because I would probably say anything tropical, only because it's just beautiful flying into like the Bahamas or Puerto Vallarta or something. It's just really beautiful. But after a while, because I have thousands of hours, everything is just another runway. It's just another runway with a different number painted on it. They all kind of look alike.
Yeah, and I've had
So,
pilots tell me, they'll say, "Yeah, I'll fly to the Bahamas, but then I don't get a layover. So what's the point?"
yeah, you fly to the Bahamas, everybody gets off, other people get on, and you leave. Like it's such a teaser. They did
Yeah,
that to me for Puerto Vallarta. I was like, it's so beautiful. We can't stay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They'll say, "Yeah, all I wanted was one night in Nassau. They just wouldn't let me have it." So yeah, I can
Unless
see
you
how
have
that'd be
it.
frustrating as well.
Yeah.
All right, I just got one more from Kwame Johnson. He's a sophomore, and he asked, "How did it feel when you first realized you had made history as the first Black female flight crew?"
Oh, wow. A lot of people don't know this part of the story. Um, there was the initial crew was the first officer I replaced, and she and I still keep in touch. Her name is Jennifer. She was so sick that when she left the plane that day, she never returned to flying.
Wow.
So I was her replacement. So once I got on the flight, um, it made the four of us. And because Jennifer was not, she was of course a woman, but not a woman of color. And we flew to Nashville, and we just thought it was cool. And so we asked the gate agent to take our photo. And so you see that photo, we're kind of jammed uh, in the corner of the airplane. And the gate agent says, "Well, why am I taking a picture?" And we said, one of the flight attendants said, because we're all sisters. She didn't really understand. And she said, "Oh my God, your mother would be so proud." Because she thought we were all like biological sisters. So that photo, and this is 2009, social media is not what it is now. We just kind of sent it to our friends and family and said, "Hey, look at what happened today. We think it's pretty cool." And someone sent it to CNN and said, "Hey, I think this might be a first." We didn't think it was a first. We're just doing our job. We figured nobody cared. Right? So CNN called OBAP, and they did some research and found out that, yeah, we really was the first. So our company called us in. We thought we were in trouble because when the company tells you, "Hey, you come to the building, we need to talk," and they told us, and it took a while to sink in. But I knew at that moment that I knew I was a part of history,
Awesome.
that I needed to make sure I made this moment in history count. And even though I always gave back, I knew this was something different. And I knew that God used me as a vessel to do bigger and better things in aviation. And I haven't turned back. I love being able to mentor. I just want my legacy to be that I leave a little bit of myself in cockpits all over the world, flight decks all over the world.
And
Because
that
I've got
did
a
not
little.
happen again. That did not happen again until recently when they did it on purpose to honor Bessie Coleman. So that was literally one of the biggest anomalies in American history, and you were a huge part of it.
Yeah, well, it has happened several times. Well, because we were the only ones that it happened just by chance.
Yeah.
Once ours happened, other companies started rearranging their schedules, trying to be the first one for their particular company. We were the first ones ever in U.S. history. So I know all the ladies that have made history at the other individual companies. Mainline Delta has done it. United has done it. I fly for United. And recently, American did it. And yeah, it's just I'm glad there's an awareness because of our flight that happened. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it is so cool. And then to hear every Black aviation professional I know, you guys are just absolute legends, and rightfully so, for everything you've done. Now we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for taking some time for us today. But before we go, obviously, we're still in Black History Month, even though we're towards the end of February, and it's just such a great time to celebrate great achievements from people by yourself, like yourself. But what can you tell these kids to know? Why does aviation need them? Why does representation matter in a field that did not have it for so long?
That's a great question, and I would hate to just put it to aviation. I want our children to know that they can win. It's going to take hard work. It's going to take dedication. It's going to take a good education. We need every child, every individual, inside and outside of Black History Month, every day on the calendar. We want you to be able to win. It's such a great feeling because a lot of us know what it's like to lose, right?
Absolutely.
So, what is it like to actually set a goal and meet that goal? Like I said earlier, find a mentor, find someone that will pour into you, um, because I think that is the key to success these days. If you can see it, you can be it, whether that's a pilot, whether that's a teacher, um, streets, like whatever it is. I want our young kids to know that they can dare to dream. And sometimes your dreams don't have to be small. Dream bigger than you ever dreamed before, because anything is possible. I believe in the making the impossible possible, and our kids should know what that's like. Do it big. Do it big and become your own history maker. I didn't set out to be a history maker. It's just kind of the stars lined up that way. But I do believe that my life, and because I do give back, creates this whole foundation for other things that is also created in my life. So make sure when you do make it, give back as well.
Absolutely. Now, before we go, tell us where we can find Sisters of the Skies for more information.
Yes. So Sisters of the Skies, SISTERS of the and SKIES.org is our website, sistersoftheskies.org. And we're on all social media platforms at Sisters of the Skies.
Yeah, and they are a great Instagram follow as well. I actually follow along, and I saw y'all's banquet you just had. Super cool, super great stuff you're doing. And again, thank you so much for taking time out of your super busy schedule to talk to our kids today. We really appreciate it. Captain Stephanie Grant, all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you so much for taking time for us.
Thank you. And before you go, I just want to thank you for your persistence. If you all don't know, he sent me messages. We've been going back and forth for quite a while now. I'm really busy, so they are lucky to have you. And just thank you so much for having me. It was a
It's
pleasure.
never been about me. It's all about the people like you that take time for them to show them what's possible. But I really do appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. You all have a great rest of your school year.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon, my friend.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Yeah.